Our third question this evening takes us away from domestic policy for a moment. I would like to ask Steve Carlson to be the first to answer this next question. What should the role of human rights be in U.S. foreign policy? And should the United States Congress ratify international treaties proposed by the United Nations?
Okay, there's two different questions there. I think that we should make our own treaties. I don't think we should have the United Nations making treaties that bind us. I definitely would not agree with that. Treaties are usually bilateral, multilateral, and don't involve the entire planet. Now, as far as human rights, I'm a strong proponent of human rights. But what I mean by human rights is basically the kind of rights that are secured in our Constitution. Freedom of speech, due process, the right to go to court, to express your points of view, the right to own property. In fact, I had a debate one time with an ambassador from China who feels that they're more like the things that Obama thinks, that you got to have food, shelter, and clothing as human rights. And so we have to clarify what human rights are. They're process rights that have allowed us to realize what freedom is and to have a lot of progress that I think the rest of the world can share. So that should be, in fact, looking at Mexico, I think we need to have the same kind of relationship with them.
Thank you very much. Teresa Collette, if you'd be the second to answer the question, what should be the role of human rights in U.S. foreign policy, and should we ratify international treaties proposed by the United Nations?
Human rights is a concept that can either be grounded in sort of a secular understanding of the human person, or like our founding fathers, we can believe that they're innate in the human person because of the dignity that is endowed by the Creator. There's no question that the United States government should observe human rights, and in fact, current law observes all of those rights contained in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The second question, however, as a lawyer, I have to confess I'm a little confused by. The United Nations per se does not create treaties, but rather they're treaties that are multilateral among many nations, or they're bilateral among specific individual nations. And so whether or not the United States should enter into any particular agreement is a judgment that must be made on the basis of the content of that agreement and on the basis of its purpose and its relationship to domestic law. I would not abandon Congress's ability to advise and consent or to ratify any agreements entered into by the President of the United States. That would betray the Constitution.
Thank you. Betty McCollum, if you'd be the final candidate to address the question, what should be the role of human rights in U.S. foreign policy, and should the Congress ratify international treaties proposed by the United Nations?
Human rights is something that is fundamental when people think of liberty and justice and the United States. And I'm very proud of legislation that I've worked on to work to ban child marriage in countries where children are literally sold into marriage at age 10 and 12, find themselves pregnant before their bodies are able to bear children safely. And so that is a leadership issue in which I've been working with Secretary of State Clinton and even in the Bush administration to put an end to. I am disappointed, however, though, that the United States is not participating in one of the conventions of the UN, and that is the Convention to Protect Children. We need to take a clear stand, I believe, working with the President, and it would be the Senate, not the House, that would ratify the treaty. But I believe that we should stand up and be part of a treaty that says children cannot be used as soldiers in war.
Thank you. Teresa Collette has indicated interest in a 30-second rebuttal.
I accept the friendly amendment, although Congress contains both the House and the Senate. So Congress has the duty to ratify. And it does seem to me that the Convention to Eliminate Discrimination Against Children is far more complex than children soldiers. There's certainly a concern across the world about that. But it also involves the absolute decimation of parents' rights, which is the reason the United States Senate has failed to ratify it, and I believe that's appropriate.
Steve Carlson has indicated an interest in a 30-second rebuttal.
Well, you were just talking about the role of human rights. Now, if we're going to get to specific human rights conventions, I think that we need to, one of the fundamental questions we face right now has to do with the various religions and the religious freedom that we have. And I think that we've got to respect other cultures, and we can't go imposing our own values on other people and think that's human rights. Because human rights means for them to allow to basically live the way that they live. We shouldn't be, we can do that, but it's not human rights per se.
Thank you.